What's up, guys? It's Sam. I need to make some black match, so I decided I was going to make a quick video showing how I do it. It's not my process. I learned it from Ned Gorskis in his Fireworking 101 video. I do it a little bit different, but the basics are exactly how he does it. So for a more in-depth look at this process, go check out his channel, Ned Gorskis. Great dude if you've never heard of him. So we're uh, a traffic cone works best, but anything cone shaped like this, I'm going to use an Erlenmeyer flask because it's the best thing I got laying around. You're going to need something like that. You're going to need your string, obviously. I'm using 12 ply cotton string here, just a single strand, but 4 or 8 ply work just fine. You can use as many strands as you want. Just repeat exactly how I'm going to do, but just double or triple your strands. I'm going to use, I got some freshly milled black powder here, just standard 75, 15, 10 with there's some debate on whether or not to use a binder. I like to use a couple percent. I put just to make sure I feel like it just sticks better to your match. So I put 2% gum arabic in with this batch. Then I got some 50-50 water isopropyl alcohol mix here. So to get prepped, I'm gonna take just some masking tape or whatever and tape 4 separate strings like so. And just the 4 opposite sides of your cone. I know it seems kind of tedious, but that's for good reason, I promise. So I'm gonna do about 80 feet a match, nothing crazy. I don't go through it that fast. And I milled up about 300 grams of black powder. That should be more than enough. If not, I got more laying around. No, it's hard to judge until this will be the first time I've used this string, so hopefully it's more than enough. If not, I have some more laying around I could use. So get an idea how much string to put on. Measure the circumference of your cone. Mine is where I'm going to be rolling. It's about a foot, so 80 turns will equal 80 feet a match roughly. So I'm hoping this 300 grams will cover 80 feet of string, if that makes any sense. So I got my string down in a bucket down here off camera. I'm gonna do the same thing with the start with my string. I'm just gonna tape it, and then just slowly make sure you count your turn, just so you got an idea how much match you got. Don't pull it too tight. Try not to get it tangled. And I'm gonna do that for 80 turns, or however many you're doing. I'll be back when I'm done. Okay, so I'm back. Just a fun fact, this is the 3rd time I've tried to record this. It's several days after I recorded that first bit. I've already made and dried about 150, 160 feet a match. I kept having problems recording, so gave myself a few days to cool down, and let's do it again. All right, so I just rolled another 80 feet of string on my cone here, and here's where we figure out why we tape those strings to the cone I'm going to gently remove that tape. Take those lengths of string and tie your loop, your hank of string. You want it tight enough to where it's not going to move, but don't tie it so tight it chokes it off. Try to find something in the middle. The purpose of this is so our string doesn't get tangled whenever we're impregnating the string with our slurry. I don't know if you've ever tried to make, I know myself personally, first few times I tried to make black match before, just kind of winging it, I would constantly have problems trying to, it would get tangled every time when I was trying to put it on my rack to dry. And if you took your time applying your string to the cone, and you do this, it completely eliminates the problem. I don't think I mentioned in the first part of the video, whenever you get done wrapping your string around the cone, make sure you tie a little knot, just like you did at the beginning. There. Make sure your end's in your last loop. Like I said, you want it to be tight enough to where the string's not going to move around real loose, but you also don't want to choke it out because you're going to have to get slurry pressed up in between those knots, so can't be too tight. Trim off that excess string just to make it a little easier on us. I'm in the middle of rearranging my shop, so sorry if the camera angle isn't so good. All right, so now we can take our hank off the cone. You see, nice, neat. It's easier to see than it is for me to explain to you, but just take your time whenever you're wrapping. Kind of stack each loop on top of the next. Don't get rid of your cone yet. Just set it to the side. We're going to need it again. 300 grams of black powder was far more than I needed for that string. Just FYI. For 80 feet of string, you could have probably got away with 150 to 200 grams. But like I said before, it doesn't hurt to have extra because you can it's just regular black powder, so you can let it dry and granulate it just like you would normally. So it's not going to go to waste. I got my water and isopropyl alcohol mix 50-50 here. I'm going to start making our slurry. You don't want it super runny. I still have a little bit of black powder in the bottom of this from the last batch. You don't want it too runny, but you need it pretty loose just to get the string impregnated well. Different amounts of charcoal, or I'm sorry, different types of charcoal and different factors are going to change the amount of moisture you got to put in each batch. So you're just going to have to eyeball it. I'll show you the consistency we're looking for whenever I get it there. Using all of it, I think. So needless to say, I really didn't need any more black match, but when I start something, I finish it. So here we are. I don't know how well you can see that. A little bit more. The amount of moisture you need is also going to depend on your string too. So it's gonna might take a couple batches to get it down. I know it did for me. Yeah, now we're talking. Different types of string are going to absorb different types of moisture differently. And like I said, it also depends on what charcoal you're using. But something like that is what I aim for. I know it seems a little bit wet, but it just makes it that much easier to impregnate that string. All right. So set your spoon aside, and we're just going to tuck that in there a little bit. It'll be fine. Just toss your string in there. I like to press my hank down into the slurry and then kind of bury it. You really need to force it in there, but also don't be too rough with it because you'll get tangled. And like I said, man, it's a freaking nightmare trying to get your match on the rack to dry if it's tangled. You'll be cussing and fighting with it too much, and when you're fighting with it, it ruins the match. You pull too much composition off the string, and it's just no fun. I said go around those where you tied your string off. Make sure you really get in there. Give it a good squeeze. Force that black powder underneath that knot. I'm not going to make you guys sit here and watch this the whole time, but I would say give it a full 5 minutes of massaging, then pull it out of your composition. I mean, you see how much white you can still see. Give it a good 5 minutes of massaging that slurry in there. Check it out, pull it out, check it. Make sure you check the entire loop because sometimes it can hide on you, especially when you got a good long length of string. And yeah, once you think you got it done, keep going a few more minutes. Check it again, and I'll be back with you guys as soon as I'm done. All right, so we're good and impregnated here. Just to get the excess slurry out before we go to the next step, I take the loop in my hand like this and kind of give it a good squeeze. That squeezes out the excess slurry, and it also gives it one last forces that slurry into the string one last good time. And it kind of consolidates the loop. Kind of run it through my hands like this a few times. All right. And as you can see, there's still plenty of slurry. I could probably do a whole nother loop. So if you want to try to conserve your black powder, you could probably make, as like I said, about half as much as I did. So the next step is we're going to put it back on our cone. Wipe some of this stuff off. All right, sorry about that. I had some audio problems. The only thing that we missed is I cut our up and down strings that are holding our loop together. I just carefully fished them out and snipped them with my scissors and then found my end. Next step is we're going to go hang it on the rack. All right, so we're over at the rack. Still got our match on our cone. I have our loop here. All the rack is, I literally threw it together in about 10 minutes. It's just a few 2x4 screwed together with a drywall screw every few inches. We're going to roll it off of our cone. Don't take it off the cone and try to roll it. The less you touch the match, the better. Said you want to be real gentle with it, not to pull too much composition off the match. Slow and steady. Once we get this first length on, we're gonna pull it tight, but not so tight it feels like it's gonna break. Now that I got that first, it's hard to see, sorry, the camera angle ain't the best. I'm just gonna gently pinch our match as I'm pulling it off the cone. One, to help shape the match better, and two, pull the excess slurry off. If you're doing this, ideally you do this outside, but the weather where I'm at isn't the greatest. So I'm doing this in my shop. So make sure you put down some paper or something so you don't get stuff all over your floor, black powder all over your floor. You might be able to see better on this side. I'm not putting any pressure. I'm just pinching the string in between my fingers as I'm going. And just slowly rolling it off the cone. I promise this is the best way to avoid tangles. Time consuming, but man, in the long run it saves time because we're not constantly fighting, tangling. All right, so our match is on the rack. Hard to see on camera. I didn't smooth out this very top one yet, just so I could kind of show you guys how I do it. I mean, I'm just gently pinching it, preferably with 3 fingers like that. Not putting much pressure. I'm just kind of shaping it and pulling off that excess composition as I'm going. See how much is there. Try to get that before it gets too dry. And you can see whenever I'm going around my screw, I don't immediately double back off the first screw. I drop down one and then return. I do that the entire length of the string, just to help give it some space in between each row, so they don't touch each other when they start. Because sometimes when they start to dry, they'll sag a little bit. The only thing left is to just let it dry a little bit, and there's two ways we can finish. I like to have some just short, straight pieces for like fusing spillets or time fuse for shells or whatever it may be. But I also like to have a continuous roll for when I need long pieces for quick match or shell leaders or whatever. I might show a video doing that as well. So I'm gonna more than likely split this batch in half and show you guys how I roll it and finish drying it that way. So I'll let this dry for a little bit, and I'll touch base with you guys. All right, guys, so our match has been hanging for about 30, 40 minutes, just long enough for me to whip up a batch of whistle fuel. I cut roughly halfway, split it into two sections. I'm going to roll half, and we're going to let the other half sit and dry so we can cut it into small sections. I just wanted to give you guys an example how I roll it, in case that's how you guys want to do it. I roll it on a 2-gallon bucket. It's just a bucket I use to roll stars in, my little homemade star roller. I'm going to take the end of our length of match. Hopefully you guys can see this okay. Brought a piece of masking tape over here with me. I'm going to tape match to the bucket just to get us started. Your dry time is probably going to be different just based on relative humidity and temperature and all that. But just you don't let it dry all the way, because it's going to be real hard and stiff, and it's going to crack and not roll right. You basically just want it to be dry enough to where you touch it and composition is not coming off. You still want it to be soft and malleable. Anyway, I tape it to my bucket, and just the exact opposite of rolling it off our cone. You don't have to use a bucket, just use something smooth and preferably tapered. Because like I said, whenever this stuff dries, it kind of shrinks, and since it's not all the way dry, it's going to kind of stick to whatever it's drying on regardless. But yeah, just same way we put it on the rack, but just in reverse. Slowly and not too tight, but relatively snug, just one lap over the other. I'm sure there's other ways to do this, but this is how I learned, and it hasn't failed me yet, so this is how I do it. All right, I cut the video. You guys don't need to see me do it. I'm sure you got the idea after a few wraps. But so just nice and neat, stacked on one on top of the other. Once it dries, it'll form a nice tight coil. From here, I'm going to set it in my drying box. If you don't have a drying box, just let it sit somewhere with air movement overnight. Should be good to go. I'm going to let the stuff that's still on the rack dry overnight, and then I'll cut it up tomorrow into whatever lengths I want. I probably won't include that in the video. You guys can cut. Whenever you're cutting, I usually exclude the ends, just toss them, burn them. That's pretty much it, man. If you guys got any quick questions, comments, concerns, leave them in the comments. If there's anything I can do to help figure out your match, I know it took me some doing to get it dialed in, so hopefully this helps. I'll include a clip at the end of how it burns, and I appreciate you guys watching. Thanks. All right, so our match is dry, cut up, nice and stiff. whenever you're cutting it up, try to be gentle with it, not to bend as much as possible. I mean, it's going to happen. But ideally, that's what we're looking for. Support itself under its own weight, you know. It's a little bit over a foot. It's supporting its own weight. Yeah, man, it looks great. Let's take it outside and see how it burns. Got a couple pieces of our match here. Let's see how it burns. Exactly how it should. Nice work, guys.